So the following note that you see on the screen is my Cornell style note, which I took while watching a Yale University Open Series lecture. Um, and what I wanted to do is just do a small reflection on what appears in front of you and some of the challenges I faced while creating this note. Because I used OneNote, the digital software, I found that formatting for the Cornell became a little bit more complicated. So instead of actually putting in these lines ahead of time, I simply put in two columns, the Q column and then the main notes column, and I created the note first. Then I completed the Q column and then did the summary column. Only after all three portions were completed did I actually put in the lines. Now, I came to realize the lines aren't necessary. They're just visually appealing, and they may help me when it comes to study time. Some of the other challenges I faced when it came to using Cornell digitally is my inability to create pictures. I'm a visual learner, and because I didn't have a stylist and I didn't have a computer, a touchscreen computer, I was limited to what I could do with text within the time period. Some of the things that the success I had was really pulling out the main points. I was able to find a lecturer who did an amazing job of outlining and signaling important information during his lecture. So for example, you'll notice the lecture, it was 6 minutes, but it comprised two main sections, 1 and 2. And before he actually talked about each section, he said, I will deal with two sections or two concepts of Freud's theory of motivation. So that was a signal to me to write down 1 and 2. And then because it's digital, I had the advantage of going in to fill in the details for 1 and then the details for 2. So that was successful for me. And when he talked about the second aspect, which was the unconscious conflicts, he very clearly said there are 3 processes in conflict. So that again triggered my memory and triggered me to identify and to create this kind of graph that you see in front. Um, uh, I think in the future this strategy will be really helpful for me because what I loved about it is after the lecture was over, I went back to complete the Q column. And what I had to do in order to create this series of questions that you see is reread my notes to make sure that my questions related to the content. So that helped in that first 5 minutes after the lecture was over to do a kind of quick review, which in university is really, really important. Also, this idea of creating a Q column with questions, I know now when it comes to studying, I can easily cover this section that you see here and literally ask myself these questions based on Freud's theory. What motivates us? How are our actions controlled? What are the processes involved in our decision making according to Freud, etc. And by having a list of questions, really I'm preparing myself for any exam or test that might come up. And then what I learned about myself as a learner. I think the big thing here for me was I learned I'm a big picture person. So I needed to know the whole in order to organize effectively, in order to keep the sections well organized. A lot of people are part to whole learners. I'm whole to part learners. I need to see the big picture and then break it down and see how all the little elements interact with each other. So knowing that about myself is actually very, very important when it comes to studying. So now instead of looking at small pieces as I study, I'm going to look at the big concepts, the few big concepts. So that's my reflection about note taking, and Thank you very much for listening.